The wind howled across the canyon like a morning spirit, carrying the scent of dry sage and distant rain. Beneath a slanted rock, she lay half covered in dust. The paralyzed Apache woman they had cast out that morning. Her name had once meant running water, but now she could not even crawl without dragging herself by her arms. The people of her tribe said the spirits had turned from her, that her paralysis was a sign of weakness, shame, and bad luck. They had taken what little she owned, her woven blanket, her beans, and left her beside the canyon's edge with only a clay jug of water that had already spilled into the sand. She did not curse them. She simply stared at the empty horizon, wondering if the sky might take her soon. Her throat was dry as stone. The sun burned low, painting the rocks golden blood red, and each gust of wind lifted grains of dust into her hair. She thought of her mother's songs, of dances around a fire she would never see again. Sometimes, the desert played tricks, a shape in the haze, a whisper that sounded like her name. But this time, there was something real in the distance, the faint rhythm of hooves, steady and slow, drawing closer. Her heart leapt, then sank. Perhaps it was another settler, another man who would spit at her and pass by. Still, her voice, weak and cracked, called out, "Help, a broken bar, please see broken bar." The word dissolved into the wind. The rider slowed. A shadow crossed her face as a horse stopped beside her. She could barely lift her eyes to see him, a tall man, broad-shouldered, his hat tipped low, the kind of man the plains turned silent. He looked down for a long moment without a word. His face was roughened by years of sun and solitude. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and quiet, almost uncertain. "You alive?" She blinked once, too exhausted to answer. The man slid from his saddle, boots crunching on dry earth. He knelt, touched her wrist, then looked toward the fading light where the Apache camp smoke still lingered. "They left you here?" he asked. She nodded faintly. He exhaled, slow and heavy, as though he'd seen this kind of cruelty before. Without another word, he removed his long coat and draped it over her trembling body. She tried to push it away, ashamed. "Don't," she whispered. "I am cursed." The man paused, then shook his head. "I don't believe in curses," he said softly. "Only in choices." And with that, he lifted her gently, as though afraid she might break. She tried to protest, weakly beating at his chest with her fists, but he didn't let go. He placed her across his saddle, steadying her limp legs, then mounted behind her, one arm holding her upright. The movement made her dizzy. The smell of leather and dust surrounded her. The rhythm of the horse's hooves became a strange comfort, a heartbeat against the silence of the desert. Her eyes fluttered open once more, catching a glimpse of the man's weathered hands holding the reins, and then the world blurred into twilight. They rode for miles under a bruised purple sky. Coyotes called in the distance, and stars began to pierce the veil of dusk. The woman drifted between waking and dreams, flashes of memory, her mother's face, her father turning away in shame, the weight of loneliness pressing deeper than the pain in her legs. She wondered who this man was, why he had stopped when so many would not. Perhaps he, too, was cursed in some way, to wander, to feel too much. At last, the sound of running water reached her ears, not imagined this time, but real, gentle, alive. They stopped near a small stream, its silver light shimmering beneath the moon. The rancher dismounted, lifted her down, and laid her beside the water. He filled his hands, brought her a drink, then looked into her eyes for the first time. There was no pity there, only quiet recognition, of the kind that passes between two souls who have both known exile. "Rest," he murmured, as he set up his small campfire. "You're safe now." She stared at the flames, feeling warmth return to her limbs for the first time since the tribe had turned their backs. She didn't yet know his name, nor what fate awaited her at dawn. But that night, beneath a sky full of stars and a stranger's kindness, she felt something stronger than despair, a fragile, flickering hope that maybe she had not been forsaken after all. The first thing she felt when she woke was the warmth of firelight flickering against her face. The second was the sound of rain, soft and rhythmic, tapping gently against a wooden roof. For a long moment she didn't move, unsure if she was alive or dreaming. Her body felt lighter, wrapped in something soft, the scent of pine and smoke surrounding her. Slowly, she turned her head. The room was small but sturdy, log walls, shelves lined with jars, a rifle resting by the door, and beside the hearth sat the man from the canyon, the rancher, quietly mending a leather strap by lantern glow. He looked up when he heard her stir. "You're awake," he said in that same low voice. She tried to speak, but her throat ached. He poured water into a tin cup and held it out to her. His hands were rough, steady as the hands of someone who lived by work, not words. She sipped slowly, her reflection trembling in the cup. "Where broken bar am I?" she asked weakly. "My place," he answered simply. "Found you half dead out by Red Rock. Figured you might prefer not to be." His tone wasn't unkind, but it wasn't pitying either. That unsettled her. Everyone else who had looked at her since her injury had worn that same expression of sorrow or disgust. But this man's eyes held neither. They only saw her. She pulled the blanket closer, realizing for the first time she was dressed in clean clothes, a simple kitten, too large for her, likely his. "You shouldn't have brought me," she murmured, guilt rising like smoke in her chest. "I'll bring trouble." He didn't look up from his work. "Trouble don't scare me much anymore," he said. "Storms, cattle thieves, broken fences, all come and go. You'll heal here, if you want to." She almost laughed, bitterly. "My legs are dead," she whispered. "No healing left for me." The rancher said nothing for a long moment. The only sound was the steady patter of rain and the soft crackle of burning wood. Then, without turning, he said quietly, "I lost my brother once. Couldn't walk after the war. Folks called him useless too. But he built this place, every log, every beam. Sometimes the body quits, but the will doesn't. You'll find yours again." His words cut through her defenses like sunlight breaking through clouds. She didn't answer, but the tear slipped down her cheek, not from sorrow, but from something she hadn't felt in years, being understood. Days passed, and the rhythm of life in the rancher's cabin began to shape her world. Each morning he'd tend to the horses, then bring her food, beans, bread, sometimes a strip of dried venison. He never spoke much, but his silence was kind. When he worked outside, she listened to the creak of the barn door, the whinny of horses, the wind humming through pine branches. She began to feel safe in that quiet, even useful. From her chair by the fire, she mended his shirts with careful hands, braided the rope, and cleaned his tools. Sometimes she caught him glancing at her as he passed, not in pity, but in thought. She wondered what he saw when he looked at her, a broken woman, or someone he believed could still rise. At night, when the fire burned low, she told him stories from her people, about the wind spirits who carried lost souls across the sky, about women who turned into wolves to guard their tribes. He listened without interruption, the glow of the fire reflecting in his eyes. "You talk like someone who still believes," he said one evening. She smiled faintly. "If I stop believing, I disappear." The rancher nodded, as though he understood that too well. One night, thunder rolled across the hills, and the wind rattled the shutters. She woke to find him outside, securing the horses in the storm. She watched him through the window, a lone figure battling the rain, steady and unyielding. Something deep within her stirred admiration, gratitude, maybe even something softer, something she dared not name. When he came back inside, drenched and exhausted, she offered him the blanket from her chair. He hesitated, then smiled, a small, fleeting thing that warmed her more than the fire ever could. In the days that followed, she began to laugh again, quietly at first, then freely. Her legs remained still, but her heart was waking. The rancher noticed it too. "You're stronger than most walking folk," he said one morning as he poured her tea. She looked at him and replied softly, "Maybe you're the one who helped me remember." And for the first time since she had been cast out, the paralyzed Apache woman no longer felt like a burden, but like someone who still belonged to life.